Okay, let's dive right in. We've got a really interesting source for you today. It's a YouTube video, gives a very personal view from Ghana.
Yeah, it's quite powerful actually, because it takes something like, currency exchange rates, which can feel a bit abstract,
Right.
and it shows you exactly what that feels like for someone living there day to day. This creator really lays it out.
Absolutely. So our mission here, our deep dive, is really to unpack this firsthand account, to pull out the key insights about, well, the real economic effects when a big currency like the US dollar weakens significantly against the local one, in this case, the Ghanaian cedi. It kind of flips the script on what you might initially think, yeah.
It really does, and that's the tension the source brings up right away. We often hear that a weaker dollar, well, maybe that's good for the local economy eventually.
Yeah, like cheaper exports or something.
Right, maybe boosts local industry because imports get pricier. But this source, it shows the sharp, immediate pain for people whose money, whose finances are tied to that dollar as it drops.
Okay, so let's get into those specifics. The source uses this phrase, calls it the dollar dying in Ghana. Pretty stark language.
It is, and they give this really concrete example. Just last month, they cashed out $300 US,
Okay.
and they got 4,500 cedi back, a specific amount they kind of budgeted around.
Right, makes sense. Something tangible.
But then just this week, and this seems to have happened really fast, the exact same $300
Yeah.
only got them 3,000 cedi.
Wow. Okay, so that's a huge drop.
Huge. It's a direct loss of 1,500 cedi in, actual spending power from just that one transaction.
And it's not theoretical money, is it? They explain what that cash was for.
Exactly. The source says, that was money for running the AC, paying the electricity bill, buying food at the market, stuff you need every day.
So suddenly their dollar funds just buy way less.
Way less of things that often have, fixed prices in cedi. So this really highlights that vulnerability, doesn't it? Relying on a foreign currency when it suddenly tanks locally.
Yeah, definitely. And what's really interesting, according to the source, is this sort of disconnect. The currency drops super fast,
Almost overnight, it sounds like.
but the prices for everyday things,
Yeah.
they don't move that quickly.
No, exactly. The source points out that even with this massive drop in the dollar's value compared to the cedi,
Yeah.
the price of food at the market, still the same. Building materials, same price. They were apparently told it might take, a month or two for those prices to maybe adjust downwards, if they adjust.
That really flags this important idea, doesn't it? Economic lag.
Totally.
Currency values are bouncing around second by second on screens, but, the price of tomatoes or cement involves supply chains, local sellers. Things are sticky.
Yeah, sticky prices is the term. It takes time. Though the source did mention one thing that changed faster.
Oh yeah, what was it?
Petrol. Fuel prices came down a little bit,
Okay.
which apparently meant transport costs like motorbike fares got slightly cheaper.
Ah, okay. So some ripple effect there.
A little bit, but it didn't immediately make the rice or the vegetables cheaper at the market stall.
Right. It shows how different bits of the economy react at different speeds, doesn't it? To the same shock.
Exactly. Different speeds.
And who gets hit hardest by this sudden shift? According to this account anyway, they mention specific groups.
Yeah, they talk about burgers and people on retirement.
Burgers. Okay, what does the source mean by that?
Well, the source defines it as basically anyone, Ghanaian or otherwise, who's lived abroad, maybe Europe, the US, and has now returned to Ghana.
I see. Repatriots, essentially.
Kind of. And these folks are often seen as having maybe more money, and crucially, their income or their savings are often linked to foreign currencies, like the dollar.
Right, so if your nest egg or your pension is in dollars.
Precisely. And suddenly those dollars buy, 33% less cedi than they did just a month ago?
Yeah, that's a massive blow to your local standard of living.
Huge. Especially if you moved back or retired there expecting a certain lifestyle based on that dollar value. It really hits those groups hard, the source suggests.
And it forces immediate changes in how people behave, right? The creator talks about this themselves.
Yeah, they give this little example about, buying toothpaste.
Okay.
Before this big shift, maybe they wouldn't haggle much for small stuff. If it's 20 cedi, you just pay 20 cedi.
Sure. Seems reasonable if your money stretches far.
But now, with the dollar buying so much less,
They have to haggle.
yeah, they say they've become a big negotiator, asking for the last price, trying to shave off a few cedis here and there, just like maybe a local Ghanaian who's always had to be more price conscious would do.
So their lower purchasing power is basically forcing them to adopt these local negotiation tactics.
Exactly. Tactics they didn't really need when their dollars went further.
There's that quote from the source, it's quite pointed. Be careful what you wish for, because we are now intuiting living like a Ghanaian.
Mm-hmm. It's powerful.
It's not just about culture, is it? It's deeply economic. It's like a sudden kind of jarring immersion into the everyday financial reality of the local market, because that buffer, that foreign currency cushion, has just shrunk so dramatically.
Oh, precisely. No more buffer.
Okay, so let's kind of pull back and recap the key things we've extracted from this source. We've definitely seen a very clear, very personal example of how a sharp drop in the US dollar against the cedi hits individuals who rely on those dollars.
Yeah, it's a vivid picture. It shows how reduced purchasing power isn't just some, economic statistic on a chart.
Right.
It messes with your budget for basic needs, it impacts bigger plans like building projects, and it really shifts the expected standard of living, especially for those groups mentioned, the burghers, the retirees whose finances are tied to dollars.
And that whole concept of economic lag came through strongly too.
Absolutely crucial. How fast currency values shift versus how slowly some local prices, especially things like food, actually adjust.
Creates that period of real financial squeeze, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Even if other things like fuel-related transport respond a bit faster.
Right. And that lag, combined with the currency drop itself, leads straight to those immediate changes in personal behavior we talked about.
Like becoming that big negotiator.
Exactly. Having to adopt strategies you didn't need before just to make the budget work.
So ultimately, this deep dive into the source really paints a picture of that complex, sometimes messy reality on the ground. Yeah. When these big macroeconomic changes happen, they ripple all the way down. They affect everything from, well, buying toothpaste to how you interact with market vendors every single day.
It really underscores how a currency's value isn't just a number. It's deeply tangled up with daily life, personal finances, choices you make constantly.
Definitely.
And maybe this account from Ghana leaves you, the listener, with something interesting to think about. How does hearing these really specific personal stories, how does that change the way you think about abstract stuff like currency strength or purchasing power?
Yeah, does it make it feel different?
And maybe it makes you reevaluate that idea of living like a local, which sometimes gets romanticized, right? Especially when you see how volatile economic conditions can actually be on the ground.
Good question. Something to definitely mull over.